The IC manufacturing process begins with designing processes on the computer. First, an electronic circuit is designed to achieve the required IC function. This process is called logic circuit design. Next, the layout pattern for the designed logic circuit is determined. This process is called layout design. This then completes the circuit pattern designing process for an IC chip. The circuit on an IC chip is extremely fine and hence cannot be wired directly. A photomask is used to transcribe the circuit pattern onto the silicone substrate. A photomask is a glass plate on which the circuit pattern is printed. The circuit pattern printed on the glass plate is magnified several folds for improved accuracy. Silicon ingots are sliced into thin discs called wafers. Dozens or even hundreds of IC chips are created on each wafer. Silicon is the second most commonly found material on the planet and is a relatively easy-to-handle semiconductor. For this reason, it is the most popular raw material for IC chips. Before the wafer can be patterned with the circuit pattern, it must be prepared with multiple layers of conductors and insulators. The oxide layers, formed by making the wafer react with oxygen under high temperature, are used as the insulating layers. The conducting layers are formed by using high temperature or plasma to plate metals chemically or physically. The circuit pattern is transcribed onto the wafer by irradiating the wafer through a photomask. This method is called lithography. The wafer must first be evenly coated with a chemical gel called photoresist. Photoresist is UV sensitive and changes property when exposed to UV light. The photoresist-coated wafer is irradiated with UV light through the photomask. The circuit pattern is projected onto the wafer, causing the photoresist on the unmasked areas to react. This is the same mechanism by which photographs are developed from film to printing paper. The pattern on the photomask is much larger than the size of the IC chip, so a lens is used to scale down the size of the projection. Each photomask contains the circuit pattern for a single IC chip only. The position of the photomask is shifted in small increments, allowing the circuit pattern to be projected square by square in order to cover the entire wafer. If the wafer is exposed to unwanted UV light during the lithography process, the circuit pattern will be ruined. For this reason, lithography is performed under yellow illumination that does not contain UV light. The areas on the wafer unmasked by the photomask are exposed to UV light. Photoresist that has been exposed to UV light will dissolve upon contact with the developing solution. This leaves a pattern of photoresist on the wafer in the exact shape of the mask pattern. This is called the resist pattern. At this point, the circuit pattern has only been transcribed as the resist pattern. The oxide layer and metallic layer that make up the circuit are yet to be processed. Using the resist pattern as a mask, the oxide layer and metallic layer are removed from the wafer. This is called etching. The oxide layer is etched with chemicals, and the metallic layer is etched with plasma. After the etching process is completed, the photoresist on the wafer surface is no longer necessary and is removed. This marks the end of a pattern transcription process for a single photomask. The patterning process from deposition to photoresist stripping is repeated for several photomasks in order to create a complex, multi-layered circuit pattern. Walls for electrical insulation are formed on the IC chip around the regions on which devices are to be formed. These walls are called device insulation layers, and serve to electrically insulate the devices. Lithographic etching and ion implantation is performed on the oxide layer and nitride layer formed on the wafer, in order to create a field oxide layer which serves as the device insulation layer. The individual devices are electrically insulated by this device insulation layer and are later interconnected to form a circuit. Once the containers for the individual transistors on the IC chip have been created, we proceed to create their contents. The transistors that make up the IC are semiconductor devices, each consisting of 3 terminals: the source, the drain, and the gate. Lithography and etching techniques are used to structure the transistors, enabling their mass production. The devices on an IC chip are interconnected to complete the circuit. Lithography is used yet once again to layer the insulating layers and the conductive metallic layers in the designated order, thus achieving a 3-dimensional interconnection of the circuit. The number of layers required for the interconnection tends to increase as the complexity of the circuit increases. The IC chips, now completed on the wafer, are tested before they are packaged. The entire wafer is checked for flaws and impurities, and each IC is tested for proper functionality. Any IC chip deemed unsuitable for shipment is marked with an ink and is not used in the subsequent processes. During the first step of the back-end processing, the wafer is cut apart into individual IC chips. This process is called dicing. The wafer is first ground to the specified thickness, after which it is securely fixed to a table and cut apart into individual IC chips by an extremely thin circular blade. Purified water is used to rinse off the silicon dust that is generated during the dicing process. The IC chips that have been cut apart are fragile and are difficult to handle. For this reason, they are placed into resin packages. The first step of this process is called mounting, in which each IC chip is attached to a platform called a lead frame. Using silver paste as the adhesive, the IC chip is attached to the part of the lead frame referred to as the island. Before the IC chip is sealed into the package, its terminals are connected to the lead frame with thin metal wires. This process is called bonding. The wires used are made of gold and are approximately 30 micrometers thick. Gold is commonly used in production of electronic parts due to its high electrical conductivity and corrosion resistance. Bonding is an extremely detailed process and is usually performed by a computer-controlled robot. A bare IC chip is vulnerable to dust, water, and physical contacts, so it is sealed into resin along with the lead frame. The lead frame has several IC chips attached onto it, so it is cut apart into individual packages after the encapsulation. Each packaged IC chip is tested to ensure its product quality. The IC chips are individually set on a tester and tested with various electrical signal patterns to confirm that their outputs are as designed. As a part of the final step in IC chip manufacturing, Information such as manufacturer name and product code is engraved by a laser onto the package surface. This process is called printing. Printing allows the IC chips to be distinguished by their characteristics such as place of manufacture and manufacturer. After printing is completed, the leads protruding from the packages are shaped into a form that is convenient for product assembly. The IC chip is now ready for its final inspection. Before the IC chips are shipped, several final inspections are performed. The exterior of the IC chip packages are inspected with image recognition devices and microscopes for any flaw or stain, as well as inaccuracy in the dimensions and shape of the leads. Furthermore, to ensure product quality, inspection of electrical characteristics is performed on a random sample taken from each lot. IC chips that have passed the final inspection are packed and shipped. The IC chips are securely fixed within the tray so that they do not collide with and damage each other. They are also wrapped in cushioning material for further protection. The IC chips are delivered to factories where they are used to manufacture devices such as mobile phones.